Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales PC pre-orders are discounted, come with free game. Miles Morales is the tertiary playable character and tritagonist of Marvel's Spider-Man and the main protagonist of the standalone expansion Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. A 17-year-old teenager, he is a friend of Peter Parker and the son of police officer Jefferson Davis and councilor Rio Morales. He is also close friends with Ganke Lee, who knows about his secret identity and helps him on missions. Peter befriends Miles after his father's death, introducing him to the non-profit F.E.A.S.T shelter so he can serve as a volunteer. Miles is unaware of Peter's secret identity as the masked vigilante Spider-Man, whom Miles idolizes. He eventually gains spider-like powers himself, which he reveals to Peter, who in turn reveals being Spider-Man. Under Peter's guidance, Miles attempts to step up as New York City's newest superhero, the second Spider-Man. In general, Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales plays and looks very similar to its 2018 predecessor. Controlling Miles, the game's general gameplay loop has players swing through New York City, taking down thugs, and trying to put a stop to the Tinkerer and Roxxon's plans. The first big difference between the two Spider-Man games is that Miles Morales is much shorter, coming in at just 6 to 8 hours in length. That being said, there are still a ton of side missions and open-world activities for players to engage in, so there's plenty of bang for their buck. As players progress through the game, they'll unlock more of Miles' unique abilities, some of which provide some gameplay mechanics that are quite different from Marvel's Spider-Man. For instance, Miles has the ability to turn invisible for brief periods, making stealth sequences a lot easier. Miles also has a range of venom attacks that use his bioelectricity powers to deliver a charge to foes in different ways. However, the trade-off for Miles' new abilities is that he's a little weaker than Peter and has much fewer gadgets at his disposal. While Spider-Man, Miles Morales takes a lot of visual cues from its predecessor, and New York itself is essentially identical between the two games, Miles Morales has a very distinct look. Being set in the holiday period, snow covers the streets of New York, and Christmas lights don the road signs and lampposts. With some beautiful lighting and environmental design, Spider-Man, Miles Morales manages to be an incredibly cozy game, even more so than its predecessor. In the original game, a pre-spider bite Miles is featured as a playable character during some investigative stealth gameplay portions in the main story. In the self-titled spin-off, he is the main playable character, adopting both stealth and action gameplay mechanics similar to those of Peter's Spider-Man. This is the best deal that has been offered on the PC version of the game so far. Fanatical had already offered a $5 discount, but make sure to enter the promo code to get the lowest price. Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales is similar to Uncharted, Lost Legacy in that it's a more compact game than its predecessor. You play as Miles, of course, as he gets his bearings as Spidey. The emotional and well-written adventure takes place directly after the events of Peter Parker's adventure. It features the same flashy combat as the original while adding new gadgets, suits, and skills. It's also a great game to play during this time of year, as it takes place during the holiday season. As an added bonus, you'll also get a free mystery game with your purchase thanks to Fanatical's Birthday Bash sale. All orders of $10 or more at Fanatical until November 14th earn customers a freebie. Though you'll most likely get a well-reviewed indie game, big AAA releases from this year are also included in the pool of freebies. After more than a year of training under Peter Parker, Miles Morales has mastered his spider-like abilities and established himself as the original Spider-Man's crime-fighting partner, though he still struggles to adapt into his new role. While escorting a police convoy carrying prisoners to the rebuilt raft, Miles accidentally frees Rhino, who wreaks havoc in Harlem. While Miles stops the other escapees, Peter struggles against Rhino, who eventually overpowers him. Miles intervenes and defeats Rhino with his new bioelectric ability, later dubbed Venom Blast, before he can kill Peter. Leaving Rhino in Roxanne's custody, Peter informs Miles that he will be assisting his girlfriend, Daily Bugle reporter Mary Jane Watson, with her assignment in Symkaria for a few weeks as her photographer, and entrusts him to look after the city in his absence. The game is an action-adventure title that was initially reported to be an expansion and an enhancement to the previous game. However, Insomniac Games would later clarify that it is a standalone spin-off that continues the adventures of Marvel's Spider-Man. The gameplay appears to retain some elements of the original PlayStation 4 title, such as New York being the free roam area, a variety of takedowns to be utilized on enemies, and suit mods being available to equip. Unlike Peter, Miles is seen using powers of invisibility and bioelectricity. The game also includes such technical improvements as near-instantaneous fast travel across Marvel's New York City and highly detailed character models and enhanced visuals to take advantage of the PlayStation 5's more powerful hardware. This had been desired since the original PlayStation 4 game. Insomniac's solution to load New York City while web-slinging through it was constrained by its heavy reliance on RAM, and the PlayStation 5's SSD would resolve this issue. Minimum and recommended PC specs. Not much else has been shown on the PC versions of both Spider-Man games, however we do now know the minimum and recommended PC specs. You'll find them below. Minimum, 720p, 30 frames per second. Graphic presets, very low. GPU, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 950 or AMD equivalent. CPU, Intel Core i3-4160 or AMD equivalent. RAM, 8 GB. OS, Windows 10 64-bit. Storage, 75 GB HDD. Recommended, 1080p, 60 frames per second. Graphic presets, medium. GPU, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1066 GB or AMD Radeon RX 580. CPU, Intel Core i5-4670 or AMD Ryzen 5 1600. RAM, 16 GB. OS, Windows 10 64-bit. Storage, 75 GB SSD. Very high, 4K, 60 frames per second. Graphic presets, very high. GPU, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3070 or AMD Radeon RX 6800 XT. CPU, Intel Core i5 11400 or AMD Ryzen 5 3600. RAM, 16 GB. OS, Windows 10 64-bit. Storage, 75 GB SSD.